Hello and welcome to the Town of Gilbert Programming Irrigation Controllers presentation brought to you by the Town of Gilbert Water Conservation Office. So if you've already watched our video on how to figure out just how much water to put on your landscape with your irrigation system with the ABCs of landscape watering video, now the next step is knowing how to put that information into these irrigation timers. Many people are scared of these timers, but they're actually not that challenging and not that difficult. So one of the things we want to think about is, what does a controller do for you? One of the great things that a controller actually does for us, as far as the job it performs, is it's going to turn the irrigation on and off at the scheduled intervals. The other thing is it can be set to water early in the morning and through the night, so we're losing less water to evaporation, especially with your overhead sprinklers where you're throwing that water up in the air. You want to run those sprinklers through the middle of the night to minimize how much evaporation is lost. The other thing these controllers will do for you is they will water the landscape without you even being there. Now, as great as these things are and the many functions that they provide for us, it is also to remember what a controller won't do for you. One of the things these controllers won't do for you is adjust themselves for the different seasonal water needs of your landscape. The summer landscape water needs are as much as 5 times higher than the wintertime needs, so you want to be making those adjustments to these controller programmings to make sure you're accounting for the changing weather. A standard irrigation controller will not do that for you. However, that new variety of what they're calling smart controllers can do that for you, and that's exactly what they do. They also won't react if there are problems in the irrigation system itself. Things like broken sprinkler heads. We've all seen them driving down the road to work. We see a giant geyser coming out of the ground, and it's a broken sprinkler. Well, the irrigation timer on its own does not know that. Very large scale, very complex irrigation systems have flow sensing capabilities that will recognize that there's more water being drawn through the system than should be when there's something like a broken pipe or a broken sprinkler head. They will automatically move to the next station and alert the irrigation contractor or the end owner of the system of the problem, so that way they know to go fix it. Unfortunately, at this time, there is just no good flow sensing options for the residential scale irrigation system. The other thing these controllers will not do for us is they don't shut themselves off when it rains. And in this particular instance, this was that wonderful September of 2014 1,000-year rain event that we got, where many times when we get some rain, these retention basins that are out there, the bottom will get a lot of useful water out of that rainfall, but the slopes really don't get any, especially with our summer thunderstorms, because that water comes down too fast and then just collects down in the bottom. Well, in this particular case, we actually filled up the retention basins with that particular storm, so even the slopes of those retention basins got lots of usable water out of that rainfall. When it comes to selecting a controller for a job, don't think so much about brands over one over another, whether it's a Hunter, a Rainbird, or an Irritrol, or a Toro. Really what you want to focus on are the capabilities of the model controller you're looking at. Obviously, the first thing you're going to think about is station capacity. How many valves can I wire to this to water the different areas of my yard? Now, if you're just doing a brand new landscape and you determine you only need a 6-station controller because you're only needing 6 valves hooked up to it, if you're a very avid gardener, you may actually want to buy a controller that has a higher station capacity than what you need, so that way in the future, if you need to add in new zones, you have the availability to do it. Some controllers are actually modular, where you buy them as a 3 or 4 station controller, and then you've got add-on modules to add more station capacity to it. That's a really, really great feature. A big one for us, especially with our drip irrigation, is the station duration capabilities. How long can I run an individual zone? Some of your cheap irrigation timers out there will only let you run 60 minutes. Well, if I've got a 1 gallon per hour emitter on a plant and I want to give that plant 4 gallons of water, that's a 4-hour runtime. So a station that can only go out to 60 minutes is not a good choice. Think about how many programs are available on these timers, and this is where you've gained the ability to water different areas of your yard at different watering intervals. It's almost like having multiple timers in the one box. And also, most of your timers, even your lower cost ones, will still have multiple start times available. And this is good for if you're putting in a winter lawn and you need to water that seed multiple times through the day to keep it moist so it germinates. Or if you've got another issue where you're trying to water deeply, but the water just runs off and you can't run it for that long at one time, we're going to show you how to get around that by using the start times on purpose. And schedule length is also another huge one for us, especially with our desert adapted plant material. So about the best you can get out there is out to a 31-day calendar, watering once every 31 days. Some of your low cost, and especially if you still have an older timer on your house, you may only be able to go out as far as once every 7 days. With our desert plant material, that's not good enough, especially in the winter times when you only want to be watering about every 21 to 31 days. So when it comes to creating an irrigation program, it doesn't matter what brand, model, or style of controller you have. Really, any controller in the world needs 5 easy pieces. So you can enter these pieces in any order you want, but when I walk you through the programming section, we're going to walk you through the logical steps the controller asks itself before it sends out the signal to open up a valve to water a specific area. Now, the controller we're using today was very, very popular for many, many years, although it's got a lot of competition lately. So you may not have this specific controller, but all of these 5 pieces are what you're going to want to put on no matter what controller you have. One of the things we like about using this controller for the training is we can program it under battery power. Now, in this particular controller, on the bottom in the middle, there's a 3-position switch. So what you're going to do is you're going to have it all the way to the left if you ever have rainfall and you don't want it to run. All the way to the right is when you want it to automatically run the program. And in the middle position is where you're going to put it to actually do the programming. The majority of your modern controllers out there don't have that 3-position switch. You're just going to turn the dial to whatever function you want to adjust and then use your adjustment buttons, just like we do on this one, using our plus and our minus buttons to adjust whatever's on the screen. This controller is a multiple program controller. This one has 3 programs available, so we can water groups of plants at 3 different watering intervals, and we're going to show you how to do that. So when we first power up a controller, when it's first installed, we need to tell the controller what day is it today. So when we look at the controller itself, we're going to move that switch over to the today position. And we're going to turn the dial 1 click to the left from where it says current time to where it says today. Now again, this is our 3-position switch down here. So we want to make sure on this particular timer we're in the middle position for the set program capability. So the controller thinks it's Sunday, but it's not. It's actually Tuesday when we're doing this recording. So we're going to move that up to Tuesday with our plus or minus button. So the next function we need to tell the controller is what time is it now? Once again, you can enter this information in any order you want. We're just walking you through the normal steps as far as the logic of the controller. So what we're going to do is we're going to move the dial back up to the top to where it says current time. And right now the controller thinks it's 12:44 in the morning. Now it's very, very important to make sure you get that AM and PM correct. And on some of these timers, unfortunately, that display is very small, so it's hard to tell whether you're in the AM or PM position. So we're going to make this say, there's the PMs. Right now it is 11:11 in the morning, so we're just going to hold that button down and let it scroll. If you go too far, that's what the other button is. So again, very important to get that AM and PM correct, because if I accidentally set this to 11:11 PM and I told the sprinklers to come on at 5 AM, they would actually come on at 5 in the evening. Next thing the controller needs to know is which days am I supposed to run the irrigation. The controller is doing a job for us, and when you get a new job, probably a good question to ask your new boss is which days are you supposed to show up for work? And this is the first question the controller asks itself before it sends out a signal to open up a valve to water an area of the yard. So the controller does look at all three programs, and that's the first question it asks. Is today a day I'm supposed to water in this program? If the answer is no, it's done asking questions. It doesn't have to ask anything else. Then it looks at the other programs on the multiple program controllers. So very important you get the programming right when you're splitting zones up into different programs. So in this case, when it comes to days to run the irrigation, that portion of the dial shows you the individual days of the week. On this timer, if you want to go to a true interval schedule rather than days of the week, that's where we have the skip day function down there. So in this particular scenario, we're going to actually tell you what the rest of the functions are, and then we'll go back to the live view on the camera and show them how they actually are. The next thing we want the controller to know is once it knows it has a day it's supposed to water, the next question it asks itself is, well, what time am I supposed to start the irrigation? You now know what days you're supposed to go to work. Probably a good idea to know what time you're supposed to show up. So on this particular controller, on the dial down there where it says start times, you see we have 3 available start times. Some controllers will actually give you the option of 4 start times, so you can split that watering up into even more cycles. Now it is important to note on this particular function with the start times, this start time is a cycle start for all of the stations that are in that program. This start time 1, 2, and 3 is not starting station 1, then station 2, then station 3. So in our example here, if we had 3 stations that each of them we wanted to water for 15 minutes, but we only wanted to run through one cycle of those 3 stations starting at 5 in the morning, we would put in one start time of 5 a.m. So what would happen then is on the day it's supposed to water at 5 in the morning, it would start with station 1, will run for 15 minutes, move to station 2, run for 15 minutes, move to station 3, water for 15 minutes, and stop. But a very common programming error is people think those start times are for stations, and they will put in a second start time thinking that starts station 2. That runs through the cycle of the 3 stations again, and in this case we have 3 stations. Somebody would likely put in a third start time. So really what's going to happen is we have 3 cycles of 15 minutes for each station, which means each station is actually running 45 minutes, not 15 minutes on a given day. So the last piece of the puzzle for what the controller needs to know to run an irrigation station is which stations to run and for how long. So on this particular timer, we have the individual stations on that side, and we just tell them their run time by pointing the dial there and doing the adjustments with the up and down arrows. One other thing on this too is because we have multiple programs on this controller, make sure you're only inputting the run times for the stations you want in that program. The other stations should be zeroed out. That's another common programming error where we will see the same program in all 3 programs, or the same information for run days, start times, and run times in all 3 programs, and people wonder why their water bill has all of a sudden tripled. So our example here is for some summertime watering, and in this case, in the A program, we're watering some grass stations, and in the middle of summer, we are only watering our grass every 3 days or about 2 days a week. Now here I'm showing a 5 o'clock in the morning start time. Actually, in the middle of summer, that's too late. The sun is already up, so we're going to make a change on that. Now in this case, our station number 1 is 27 minutes, and our station number 2 is 21 minutes. And with one start time, it's going to run each of those stations once. Now, if we have desert shrubs, we don't want to be watering our desert shrubs 2 days a week. So we are going to put those in the B program for only once every 9 days, starting at 6 o'clock in the morning. Now with drip irrigation, you're not throwing the water up in the air like you are with sprinklers, so it's okay to run those in the early morning hours when the sun is already up. Also, because drip irrigation runs at a low pressure, leaks can be very, very sneaky. And if you're running in the middle of the night, you may not realize you have a leak out there. So running them in the early morning hours when people are likely to see it is not a bad idea. So our trees, if our irrigation system is set up correctly, are on a separate zone, so we can water them deeper, which means they go even longer in between waterings than our shrubs do. So we're going to water our trees in the seed program only once every 15 days, and we're actually going to purposely use 2 start times here. So at 2 a.m. every 15 days, Station 4 is going to run for 3 hours, and then at 8 p.m. the following evening, it's going to run again for another 3 hours, for a total run of 6 hours on that irrigation day. So here's our imaginary landscape here. So we've got some grass in the backyard where it's actually going to be utilized for a play area, and it was big enough where we couldn't run all the sprinklers at one time, so we had to break that into 2 separate zones or valves or stations, however you want to put it. The red line there is showing you those are the drip lines running to the shrubs and only the shrubs. And the yellow line there is a separate valve or zone with that yellow line running to the trees and only the trees. So what we're going to do is when we're using these programs, if you have multiple stations that want to be watered at the same watering interval, how many days between waterings, you're going to group those in the program together. So in our example here, we are going to run our lawns in the program A every 3 days or about 2 times a week. And now I'm showing you 5 a.m. here, but we're actually going to fix that. And I know it's hard to see that Station 1 runtime with the color that we've put slides on the new color background there, but that does say 27 minutes. And then the second zone or station on the grass, we're going to water for 21 minutes. So let's show you on the controller how that's actually done. So very importantly on this controller, we're going to make sure that middle switch in the that bottom switch is in the middle position. And we want to make sure our program selector switch is in the A position. Now, when these controllers are first plugged in, they have what's called a factory default program where they're set to water every single day, all stations for 10 minutes, 1 cycle per day. So we've already set our controller to the proper day of Tuesday. Now, you don't want to run your sprinklers on the morning hours before you mow. So if you always mow your grass on Sunday, you're going to want to turn that off. But on Monday, the very next evening, or through the middle of those nighttime morning hours, you're going to want it to run. Tuesday, we're going to want to turn off. Wednesday, we're going to want to turn off. Oops. Thursday will be the 3rd day. If you're applying the right amount of water to your grass in the middle of June and July, you only water your grass every 3 days. Thursday is the 3rd day, so we're going to leave that on. And we're going to turn Friday off and Saturday off. So the next piece of the puzzle the controller wants to know, now anything that's put in the A program is only going to water on Mondays and Thursdays. So on our example, we showed you we wanted that to start at 5 a.m. by turning the dial down here to start time number 1. There's a default in there of 7 a.m., so we're just going to use our minus button to change that. Most of your modern controllers, you can just hold the button down and it'll start scrolling. And if you go too far, you just use that other button. So there's that 5 a.m. we said we were going to put in. We're going to leave that there for now. So now the controller knows in the A program, watering only on Mondays and Thursdays starting at 5 a.m. The last thing the controller needs to know is which stations and for how long. So our number 1 valve or station, we wanted to water for 27 minutes. So there's that default 10 minutes that the factory puts in there. That's in case the power goes out and your backup battery has not been changed and is dead. This makes sure that when the power comes back on, at least some watering is going to happen. Might be too much, might not be enough, depending on whether it's sprinklers or drip, but at least some watering is going to happen. So we're going to change this to say 27 minutes. Now the second station was another grass station there, so we're going to move that to station or valve runtime number 2. We're going to change that 10 minutes to the 21 minutes we wanted. Now these are both watering one piece of grass, so it's obviously in the same climate, probably in the same soil, very likely. Why would we be running one station 6 minutes less than the other? Well, if you've seen how to do the catch can test in the ABCs of landscape watering video, you may have discovered that one of the zones, the number 2 zone, actually applies the water a little bit faster than the number 1 does. Now, changing that runtime by only 6 minutes, many people think, well, that really doesn't make much of a difference. You'd be surprised how many gallons per minute are running through those pipes when those sprinkler stations are running. If it was only 10 gallons a minute and we reduced the runtime by 6 minutes, we've saved 60 gallons of water. That may still not sound like a lot, but now think about how many times a year that sprinkler zone is running. That little modification of runtime can make a change of thousands and thousands of gallons at the end of the year. Now we're in the A program here. We've got it set up for our lawns, but we have to remember that default factory program is still in there. So on our station number 3, which is our desert shrub, still has that 10-minute runtime in there. We don't want our shrubs to be watering 10 minutes on Mondays and Thursdays. So we're going to use the minus button and make that say off. Some of your timers may actually have a button that says clear as a way to turn that off. Station number 4 is our trees. We don't want them watering that default 10 minutes on Mondays and Thursdays. So we're going to turn that one off as well. Now in this situation, we only have 4 stations in our imaginary landscape, and we have a 6-station timer. So station number 5 and station number 6 aren't actually connected to any valves, so it really doesn't hurt to leave that 10 minutes in there. However, you might not be the only person that ever looks inside that timer, so don't confuse us when a Gilbert Water Conservation Specialist comes to your home to help you with a water efficiency checkup and make us look around trying to figure out what station 5 waters. So we're going to go ahead and turn those off as well. So again, you can put all this information in any order you want, but you have to have all 5 pieces of the information. Now, one of the things I've learned over the years, you'll see people that are very competent and comfortable with programming these timers, and the dials moving back and forth, the program selectors going up and down, the buttons are going up and down, and sooner or later you're going to make a programming error. So what I like to do, the controller doesn't care whatsoever, is once I'm done inputting a program, I'm going to turn my dial back up to where it says current time. That does nothing for the controller, but it does reset my brain to say, okay, I'm done. Now I can move to the next program. We do have an issue here, though. We do want to water deeply and only 2 days a week with our grass, so we've got a long run time of 27 minutes there. With most of your sprinklers, you're not going to be able to run 27 minutes all in one shot. It's all going to run off the grass area, start ponding in the low areas, and this is where you use those extra start times on purpose to do what we call cycle and soak programming. So we want to run a full runtime on a given water day of 27 minutes, so we can't do it at once. Knowing we have 3 start times, we're going to divide 27 by 3, and that equals 9 minutes. Station number 2, because we're going to be putting multiple start times in there, it's going to affect every station that's in there. Even if we could run 21 minutes in one shot, we're going to have 3 start times, so we don't want to be running 63 minutes. So 21 divided by 3 is 7 minutes. Now we're going to fix where we actually had that timer set to water too late in the morning, because in the summertime the sun is already up at 5 a.m. So we're going to water through the middle of the night with 3 cycles of 9 minutes and then 7 minutes. So we're going to use our minus button and make this say midnight. Oops. There we go. Now we're going to purposely put in a second start time an hour later, and we're going to make that say 1 o'clock in the morning. That'll give that first little shot of water an hour to soak in, and then our third cycle that we want to get our full 27 and 21 minutes, we're going to make that say 2 o'clock in the morning. So now what's happening is on Monday morning at midnight, it's going to run station 1 for 9 minutes, station 2 for 7 minutes. Then at 1 o'clock in the morning for that second start time, it's going to come back and water station 1 for 9 minutes, station 2 for 7 minutes. And then the third cycle at 2 a.m. we'll water station 1 for 9 minutes and then station 2 for 7 minutes. So now we've watered nice and deep to make that grass happy, get that water down to that 6 to 10 inch root depth. but the water has now actually soaked into the ground where the roots of the grass are instead of running over the sidewalk and down the street. When you see that water running down the street from your lawn, that is water that you paid for that you have thrown away. So by using those extra start times on purpose to do that cycle and soak programming helps stop that process. Now that we're done programming with the A program, I'm going to turn the dial back up to where it says current time. So now we're in good shape. We're all set up to water our grass, but now we need to think about what we're going to do for our desert shrubs. We don't want to water our desert shrubs 2 days a week or 3 days a week, even in the summer. Established desert shrubs, watered properly, go much longer in between the watering. So in this case, we're going to water our desert shrubs once every 9 days, starting at 6 in the morning and watering that zone for a 4-hour run time. However, how do we set it up to water once every 9 days when there's only 7 days in a week? That's when you're going to use that interval or skip day function. So let's go ahead and go back to the timer and see how that's done. So the first thing we do before we do anything is we're going to make sure we're going to move to the B program. Many of your timers, instead of this switch, will have a button that says program or PRG, and it'll show you in the display what program you're operating in. So now, since there's more than only 7 days in a week and we want to water once every 9 days, we're going to turn the dial on this one down to where it says skip days. On many of your other model controllers, you're going to see the days of your week labeled here, and you're going to use your arrow keys to go past them and then into the interval function that you'll then adjust up or down with these buttons. So in this case, we want to water our shrubs once every 9 days. So there, this controller is now in the B program, whatever we set in here, the controller is going to count 1 through 9 and then water. If we had it set to every 1, that doesn't mean today it's not going to water, tomorrow it's going to water. It's actually every single day when you set it to a 1-day interval. So our desert shrubs, we only want to water once every 9 days. And we're going to want to tell it when to start the B program. Notice the number 1 start time says off, and that's because we're in the different program. You get 3 start times per program. If you think it lost the information from what we put in from our lawns, move that selector switch back to the A position, and there you see there's that midnight start time. So in this case, we want to start at 6 o'clock in the morning. So we're going to hold down our button. And one more, there we go, 6 o'clock in the morning. So now whatever is in the B program, it's only going to water once every 9 days, starting at 6 a.m. Last piece the controller needs to know for information is which station to run and for how long. And in this case, we want station number 3 to water for 4 hours. So this is a drip irrigation system. So we want to run for multiple hours, providing that we are using good 1 gallon per hour or 2 gallon per hour emitters. Now that is one nice thing about this controller is it will say HR there for you to let you know you're programming in hourly increments. Many of your other controller models, if you want to program 4 hours, it's going to look like 4 o'clock on the display. 4:00. So now we've answered all the questions we need to for our B program. So I'm going to turn my dial back up to where it says current time. So we're all set. Now where we're at right now is our lawns are going to water on Monday, Thursday for 3 cycles of 9 minutes and 7 minutes each through the middle of the night. In our B program, our shrubs are only going to water once every 9 days starting at 6 a.m. with station 3 and station 3 only for 4 hours. Now if we've done our irrigation system properly and our trees are on their own separate zone, that allows us to water our trees deeper to promote that nice, healthy, deeper root system. And when you're making this deposit of water into the soil, almost like making a deposit into a checking account, the trees get a bigger paycheck so they can go longer between paydays. So in this case, we only want to water these trees once every 15 days. And we're actually going to use 2 separate cycle starts on this drip irrigation system on purpose. So we're going to water station 4 for 3 hours each cycle for a total run time of 6 hours. So let's see what that looks like on the timer. First thing we want to make sure we do is we move to the new program either by the selector switch on this model, or if your timer has a button to move through the programs, make sure you push that. So we want to water our trees once every 15 days. So we're going to move that down to the skip day function and use our plus button to make it say once every 15 days. Now you might have noticed on my actual slide there, it actually said we're going to water 8 p.m. and then 2 a.m. Well, that's kind of backwards because 2 a.m. comes before 8 p.m. But even if we programmed them in backwards like that on the timer, it would still pick up both start times. But just to make it nice and clear, we're going to make this first start time our 2 o'clock a.m. However, when we fixed our lawn program to make sure we're doing that cycle and soak programming with 3 short cycles on a given irrigation day to make sure we don't have any runoff, our third start time is 2 a.m. in that program. Sooner or later, once every 15 days, might be a Monday or a Thursday. Most are better timers if they're already running a program and they see a new program try and start. They will finish running the program they're in and then start the second program. But just to make sure there's no overlap, I'm going to go ahead and make this first start time say 2:30 in the morning. Then no matter what, I'm going to make sure there isn't that overlap. Now in the second start time, we're actually going to make that 8 o'clock in the evening. There we go. And the last piece of the puzzle is which station to run and for how long. So station or valve number 4 is our trees, and we want to run that for 3 hours with 2 cycles for a total run of 6 hours per irrigation day. Now, people have said for years with drip irrigation, it applies the water nice and slow, so we're not doing the cycle and soak programming to control runoff. What we're doing is we want to water a good long time to give it enough gallons we want, but if we ran it all in one shot, that water may actually go deeper than we're after. So what we're going to do is we're going to do half of our watering and then let it sit for a while. And then the second cycle we come in, when we hit it, it's already hitting moist soil. So it won't have that deep percolation that we don't want, pushing that water even below the root zone that we're targeting. The other thing is most people do not have enough emitters on their trees. So if you come in with that second cycle on that already moistened soil with drip irrigation, it's going to actually help push that water even further sideways underground, which is why drip irrigation works so well with our clay soil. So now we've got all the pieces of information we need in for our tree station. So we can turn our dial back up to where it says current time. Except for, wait a minute, our station number 1 is off, so now it's lost our 9 minutes of run time for our lawns. So we better put that back in. That is actually a mistake. You want this station zeroed out because we are in the C program. If we look back in the A program, our 9 minutes is still there and intact. So now we're going to turn the dial back up to where it says current time, so we're all set with our tree program. So now just another quick review, our watering schedule that we have programmed into the controller. In the A program, watering on Mondays and Tuesdays only. At 12 a.m., it's going to run station 1 for 9 minutes, move to 2, water for 7 minutes. Then at 1 o'clock in the morning, it's going to water station 1 for another 9 minutes, water station 2 for another 7 minutes. And then at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's going to run station 1 for 9 minutes, station 2 for 7 minutes. So we have that full deep watering we wanted, but we've controlled the runoff by doing those 3 separate short cycles and back to only every 2 days. Our B program for our shrubs is once every 9 days, watering at 6 o'clock in the morning, station 4 and station 4 only for 4 hours. You'll see all the other stations are zeroed out there. And then our C program for our trees is once every 15 days. At 2 a.m., it's going to run station 4 for 3 hours. And then at 8 p.m. the following evening on that day, it runs for another 3 hours for a total water delivery of 6 hours. So now we're all set and we're ready to go inside and congratulate ourselves that we've done a great job on programming the controller. Well, on this particular model controller, we want to wait a minute because it's very important that we do set that back to the run or manual position by sliding that bottom switch to the right. Now, if you do have a rain event and you don't have a rain sensor on your timer, sliding that to the left to where it says off or stop does not erase your program. It's still there. It's just not going to run it until you actually push it back to the run or manual condition. Now, you may not have put in your irrigation system, so you may not know what station waters where. So you've got to figure out what to do, or even if you do, you want to turn your irrigation on in the daytime to do your inspection and make sure everything's functioning properly. And that's what that manual button is all for. All of your timers have a way to run the irrigation manually. Let's show you how to do that on the live timer. So here we've got our controller. We are in the run or manual position. This particular timer does not care where this dial is pointing as long as we are in the run or manual position, but it is a good idea to leave it pointing at current time. So that way, if you open your controller and you see the current time is different, you better check your program and make sure it's right. This controller also does not care what position that program selector switch is in. It looks in every program every day to see if it's supposed to run something, and then what time to start, and then what stations to run. But if we want to find out what station 1 waters, or to just turn on those sprinklers to make sure they're all working okay, with this in the runner manual position, we turn the dial to 1, and you'll see even though we're in the A position, it still says off. That's because we're not in the set program condition, we're in the run condition. So if we program in 3 minutes and then hit our manual button, you'll see the display changes. We've got a big M here, and now up in the corner you see it is running station 1. You now have 3 minutes to run around the house and either see what station 1 waters or to go look at the sprinklers. You already know what they are, and make sure you don't have any broken heads or broken nozzles or anything like that. If we're done with that, we can just go ahead and turn it off. And then if we want to see what station 2 does, we're just going to move to 2. This does not change your program. This is just a timed manual run. So now you'll see station number 2 starts. So now we can go inspect station 2 and make sure it's okay. Or in the case of a new home with a new irrigation system, you can see what it actually waters. So let's go ahead and turn that off. Now, there's another thing here that you can do with most of your timers, and that is, let's say you've been watering your shrubs with very short run times very often, and by watching our ABCs of watering, you know desert shrubs may only need to be watered once every 9 days, but you've been watering them every day. You probably making that change if it's the middle of summer, do not want to change from once every 1 day to once every 9 days in one shot. You're probably going to want to step that out in several steps by watering more and less often in incremental steps. But if you went ahead and made that change from every day to once every 9 days, and you get out to about day 7, and you say, boy, those shrubs don't look very good, what we can do is we know our shrubs are in the B program, and then we can hit our semi-auto button. So now you'll see in the display station number 3 popped up. It is found in the B program. There's no runtime for station 1 or 2, but station 3 has that 4-hour runtime in there. It's going to run the 4 hours and then resume its automatic operation. We do have a section in the handouts that we provide to you called Why is my controller acting so crazy? And we will make sure we get that in a PDF formula and up on our website that covers this entire presentation and everything we've talked about. But a lot of times people don't understand that the symptoms they see with an irrigation system, the things where it's acting wrong or wonky or not doing what it's supposed to be doing, they blame it on the timer. That's because the timer is above ground and that's what they can see. Very often the problem is a programming error, so hopefully we've helped you today by knowing how to properly program a timer, but other times it's actually other things in the irrigation system that are malfunctioning, like the valve that's underground in that box. So some of those main symptoms are listed in that handout that we will have posted up on the website. And also you can get help from the manufacturers, either through the technical service numbers that are toll-free numbers. You can talk to a specialist with that manufacturer about their products. You can go to the website and learn all sorts of information. You can actually download the manual for your controller if you don't have it. So that way you always have it on hand. Now, if you do have questions, you can email us directly at water.conservation@gilbertaz.gov. You can also sign up. We're going to have some live question and answer sessions for the 4 different videos we're providing for you this fall. And you can sign up for those at gilbertaz.gov/water workshops. So on Thursday morning, October 22nd at 10 o'clock, we're going to be taking live questions about the plants and the hummingbird and butterfly classes, the presentations we've put up there. And then on Thursday, October 29th at 10 a.m., we're going to be answering questions about the 2 presentations that have to do with watering, the ABCs of watering and this programming your irrigation controller. Thank you all for coming.